Okay, so yeah, introduction to Orthodox Judaism. The first thing, since you mentioned it, well, actually two things I want to mention before I even get to this, get back to this again, is what is a pet peeve? That in the Orthodox world, we do not call them temples, and I'll get to that, the reason why later. But we call them synagogues, or we also use the Yiddish word shul.
School.
Huh?
School.
It's not a school, and I don't know exactly how it got there.
Okay.
It seems like it should come from the word school, but I don't know why, but it refers to a synagogue. It doesn't refer to a school.
The German is schule, Schule is school.
Then that's probably where it came from.
Yeah.
Because Yiddish is basically warmed over German.
Warmed over.
Yeah.
However you want to say that.
Hebrew and German combination.
It's like 85% German, and then the rest is the other 15%, probably another 7% or 8% is Hebrew, and then the rest is just mixtures of Polish and Russian and whatever.
Now, so you were raised going twice a year to the Lutheran church. Was that one from one side, or did you have one side that was? So that's the thing is my parents are mixed. I grew up not Orthodox, Reform, which we'll talk about in hopefully in a later class, and we did twice a year temple. Reform calls them temples, and twice a year the Church of the Good Shepherd, which was a Lutheran church. My father grew up and did like the whole confirmation and catechism, went to Lutheran school and stuff like that. I learned about, I joined a born-again evangelical youth group in high school, learned a lot about Christianity, studied it, considered it, and everything, and at the same time started learning about Orthodox Judaism, and then eventually migrated to Orthodox Judaism as opposed to either Christianity or Reform. And yeah, so so we'll throw up some more terms. Hi.
Hi.
Are you here for the Judaism class? Judaism?
Yes.
Okay, good. You're in the right place. Have a seat. What do you like? What? Yeah, there's a camera behind you, so don't. If we cannot sit in front of that. Are you Lee Hong?
I'm her husband.
Her husband. Okay. Hi, I'm Bobby Wyman. Nice to meet you. What's your name? True.
You can call me CP.
Okay, CP. Okay, Chun Pong.
Yeah.
Chun Pong. Okay.
I
will try. Oh, could you please add your email? Oh, actually, is your wife's email the right email for you too?
Yeah, that's good. Okay.
Or you can add your. All right. And Chun Pong, what? Are you Chinese?
Yeah.
Okay, so did you grow up atheist?
I'm sorry.
Did you grow up in China?
I'm from Beijing, China.
From Beijing, okay. Right. So you grew up atheist, no God.
Right.
Okay. So someone who starts off Jewish but eventually becomes religious, there are two different terms for them. Just talking about a man for now. In America, the term has become Baal Teshuvah. In Israel, they call them Choser. I know you may not be able to pronounce that. Actually, if you know German well, then you can say Choser B'tshuva. I put up the Hebrew, but I don't think it'd help anybody. Nobody actually reads Hebrew, do they?
I'm learning some. Yeah, I wouldn't say that I read it, but yeah, I know the alphabet.
All right.
And I can figure out some words.
So, Baal Teshuvah. Teshuvah means repentance. Comes from the word to return. Baal Teshuvah is someone who, it literally means master of repentance, but it means like someone who, Baal also can mean someone who does something. Chozer b'tshuva means someone who returns in repentance, literally. Someone who returns in repentance. So those are in Israel they call them this, and in America we use a Hebrew term, but it's not the same one. I don't know why. Things just happen like that. I was trying to, even though we're going to have a lot of terms like this thrown in, I was trying to give an example of a Jewish colloquialism, something that we say even in America among Orthodox Jews, but it's not, it's an expression. It's not necessarily English. So shalom, you may have heard of, I don't know if you ever heard the word shalom. It's like aloha, or it's peace. It means peace, it means hello, and it means goodbye. So this actually is peace. Aleichem is on y'all, meaning more than one person. So when we haven't seen somebody for a long time, or we just meet them for the first time, we say Shalom Aleichem, and the answer is Aleichem Shalom. If you're familiar with Muslims, have the similar expression Salam Aleichem, Aleichem Salam. It means it's referring to the angels who are with you. So that's why we say, you've just come with angels, because we see like when Jacob is he has a dream and there's angels descending and angels going up and angels going down. It actually is the angels changing. There were angels that accompanied him, and they're changing because he's going from outside of the land of Israel to the inside of the land of Israel. So they switch angels, and that's why they're going. That's one of the reasons that there's angels going up and down.
So what does it literally mean? Aleichem is.
Aleichem is al is on. Aleichem is on y'all, meaning more than one person.
So peace be on y'all. But then,
yeah.
How does it refer to the peace be on y'all to the angels?
In other words, you came from I'm seeing you for the first time in a year, so I say Shalom Aleichem. So I'm greeting you and the angels who are with you, right? Peace on all of you.
Question. In French, when they say hello, do they also say shalom?
No, not in French.
Bonjour.
Bonjour. Comment ça va? I don't know what, allo. I don't know any other terms. I don't think they say shalom. That would be weird. Okay, I put this list up ahead of time. I forget who it was that quipped that America and England are separated by a common language, which is a problem that we have, not with you, but with with this side of the room. Is that people grow up in a Christian context, they learn the meanings of words in a Christian context, and they never know that those, as Inigo Montoya said, that word does not mean what you think it means. So these are a list of words that I came up with, there's more, I'm sure, of words that have different definitions within Judaism, or specifically Orthodox Judaism and Christianity. And actually, Reform Judaism is like, in conservative, or kind of like on a side thing. But
do you have a piece of paper I could take notes on? I'm sorry. I
don't. Don't.
That'd be wonderful.
I'm not sure if I'm going to need any of the papers that are in there.
Thank you very much.
You got something to write on?
I don't.
You can use a notebook, the pad to write on.
Thank you.
I don't know if I have anything else that could be used for something.
You're in early leave from school.
I need to use those to write on. You don't have anything else? I am going to post a video on YouTube eventually. There's audio from previous. I've done this class last year, both semesters. So there's audio out on the internet from those classes. I want to give them to you one at a time, so you don't get tempted to just miss all the rest of the classes. Okay, right. So I just put these up as an example. We're going to be going through all of these. over the course of the class. However, not tonight's class, but this class is pretty much going to extend out about 8 weeks. It'll give or take. I put it on Thursday because that's the only day where no Jewish holidays fall. This is like our big time for Jewish holidays right now. So when we say the holiday season, this is what we mean. September, October timeframe. So it also depends on what you guys want to know. So if you ask a question and we go down a whole different road, then it could last longer, or maybe we'll just skip something else. But these are the things I want to try and have you, not so much Zionism, if you know it. If you come from an anti-Zionist background, then you should get that out of your head. But otherwise, to get these concepts out of your head so that you have the ability to absorb a different definition. And that can be really hard because you're still thinking in terms of, oh, I know what the Bible is, I know what sin is, I know what the Messiah is. Right. Okay. Should I leave any of this up, or okay, I'll leave it up. He's writing.
Oh yeah.
Actually, you have my notes though in here. That's okay. I just need the paper.
Are you gonna go through each word one at a time?
No, we will. We're just going to cover them, and we're not going to get to all of them today. And but over the course of this whole class, then you'll see what the different definitions are for all of these terms. We are going to start, however, with monotheism. So Judaism is a radical monotheism. When I say radical, to differentiate it from Christianity, from what I understand Hinduism, we have one God and that's it. So there are some interesting things that come out of this. You go, okay, you have one God. This is are you familiar at all with Islam? Have you ever learned anything about Islam?
Slightly, a little bit.
Huh?
Muhammad and yeah.
Islam is also radical monotheism as far as but there's some interesting corollaries. So first of all, before the world was created, there was just God. And so the question becomes, how do you create a world? Because if God is everything, then you have to create something that isn't God in order to be the world, or a space that exists when there's no space. It's not necessarily an intuitive concept. So we believe that in the beginning there was only God. That's all there was, and God had to limit himself in order to create the world. One of the limitations I just had never thought about, but I heard this in a class recently, is that we have the four-letter name of God, which I'm not going to write. When God gives himself a name, once you've named yourself something, you automatically limit yourself. You are Susan and not John, right? You've automatically limited yourself. So we call this concept Tzimtzum, and I don't understand anything more about it than what I've said, except that somehow God had to get out of the somehow God had to get out of the way in order to create a physical universe. So even though we say that even though his presence fills the entire universe, somehow we can disconnect from it enough to create the world that we live in. God is not divisible. Therefore, he doesn't have any parts. When we use the term God's hand, God's arm, God's body, or whatever, these are anthropomorphisms. They don't really exist as we think about a hand or whatever, because he doesn't have parts. There is no assistant God. Everything that is created works for God. The angels are on a higher level, then the angels are an interesting thing. They are more connected to divinity. The closer you are to God, the less free will you have. It's like having a boss who watches over your shoulder all day long. So you can't possibly think of stealing a pen when your boss is watching you all day long, because that would just be insanity. So angels all work for God. That includes the devil. Well, we don't have a devil. We never call him a devil. We have there is a divine being. Let me know if I should slow down. I feel like I'm giving like too much. You have any questions so far?
Good.
All right. So there, we have a being called Satan, right? Which is where they get the English word Satan. He's never called the devil. Most of the verses that the Christians use to talk about the devil are not referring to the devil at all. There's something about, and I didn't look it up, there's something about the morning star, or being thrown down to earth, or something like that. From what I remember, that comes from the book of Daniel, and it's referring to Nebuchadnezzar. I may be wrong about where it comes from, but I do seem to remember that it's referring to Nebuchadnezzar. It's not referring to the Satan. The Satan is mentioned in a couple of places explicitly, and then he's there. We do infer some other places. For instance, we say that the snake was the Satan or something, but it's a. But the point is, when as we're covering those, like, it's not the same verses that you're thinking of. So we don't have this idea, all angels to us. An angel, I'm going to erase the top part because I need some space right here. An angel is called a malach. And that's related to, comes from the word milacha. And the melacha is a task. It's a set of work that when you do it, you've accomplished something. So, plowing a field would be melacha. Now, there's a more general term for work called avodah, but we're not going to go into that. Melacha is basically a task. A malach is an agent. In the Torah itself, it is used to refer to both human agents. In other words, I send you to go do a job for me. You're representing me. And also for angels. There is a debate when it says that Yaakov sent angels, sent malachim in front of him to go see his brother Esav. I hope it's okay if I use the Hebrew terms. You're not familiar with the Bible at all, I take it. Okay, so Yaakov and Esav are brothers. Yaakov is the good guy, Esav is the bad guy. They're twins. When he's been running away for 22 years, I believe. He comes back, and he's afraid that Esav is going to kill him. So he sends gifts in front of him in order to appease his brother. And he sends, with the gifts, he sends the ones leading the gifts, because it's like sheep and stuff, he sends malachim. There's a debate. Did he send human people who were representing him, or did he actually send angels? Yeah, go ahead.
A simple question about the Bible. What's the original purpose? What's the originality of Bible in Jewish history? Is that a history book documentation, or someone read it at a certain history moment?
The biggest purpose, I think I would have to say, on one foot, is actually to teach law. There's a set of laws in the book that span most of the book and are derived from also from things that are from stories and whatever that are in the book, and that was the main purpose. But it goes much deeper. It's a very what we say is that the Bible, sorry, we have to make a big distinction here. Okay, there are in the Jewish counting there are 24 books of the Bible. Okay, that encompass from creation. The time span of the story is from creation of the world, right, to let's say somewhere around 500 BC. Okay, do you know the term BCE?
Yeah. BCE?
BCE?
Before Christ.
So BC is before Christ.
Yeah.
BCE is a non-religious way to say the same thing.
Okay.
It means before the Common Era.
Okay. Because
we've all agreed, for whatever reason, to start our calendar 2012 years ago. 2011 years ago. So I will tend to use this term. It means the same thing. So from around creation to about 2,500 years ago, give or take, right? That's the encompassing, the time span encompassed in our Bible, in our whole Bible. The Bible is made up of. Can I erase this stuff? You guys are.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. The Bible has 3 parts. 2 of the parts are almost identical, and I'll tell you. Okay. So there's. This gets complicated because there's a term Torah. Torah. We use this term as a generic catch-all for anything related to religious study in a book, right? So I could say, we're learning Torah, and we're actually learning a thesis that was written a month ago by a particular rabbi about some area of Jewish law, right? And I'll say, well, we're learning Torah, we're learning that thesis, we're reading it. So in this context, we're going to switch. I said there's 24 books, right? The first 5 are called the 5 books of Moses. It's also called, in Hebrew, it's called Chumash, which comes from the word Chamisha, which means 5. It's the 5 books, right? Those have a different sanctity than everything else. Those books are separate from everything else. The other 2 parts are Nevi'im and Ketuvim.
Can I just get you to reiterate the part about Torah? So does
Torah,
does that have to be of a rabbi's thesis? I mean, could you do Torah
what I'm saying is
calculus book? Could you be studying Torah?
Some say yes, but it's a much bigger stretch. Usually we don't necessarily use it that way. Okay. Some say that you are, but that's kind of a bit of a stretch.
So what is the literal? What would I say?
Torah it means instruction, but the problem is that we use it in several different contexts to mean different things.
Okay.
We use it sometimes to refer to just the first 5 books. We sometimes use it to refer to this whole set of 24. We sometimes use it to refer to the collection of the oral Torah, which we're going to get to later, and the written Torah, which is this 24 books. We use it as a catch-all for all of that. So we kind of use it as a generic catch-all word. So I'm going to start calling this Chumash, to distinction, right? However, you will see the term a lot, Tanakh. Let's spell it this way. You can spell it with a CH, KH. There's no defined spelling. Tanakh. Tanakh is an abbreviation of Torah, Nevi'im, and Ketuvim. The other 19 books fall into these 2 categories. There's some distinction between them, but they won't be for you or Like the practical distinction is very small. This is prophets and writings. And you have books that are you have several people, Jeremiah, for instance, Yirmiyahu, wrote one book in here and one book in here. Right? Same person. Okay. So we've gone from the Bible. When we talk about the Old Testament, our Bible, the Hebrew Bible, the Hebrew Scriptures, we're talking about this collection of 24 books. The first 5 have a completely different sanctity than the rest of it. The first 5 encompass all of the law. Wow. Yeah, I'm not used to doing this with like a non-Christian audience. Okay, so skipping way ahead, and you know what? Can we come back to this later? Mm-hmm. Okay, we will get to this.
What's the format of
the first five?
What's the medium of the Bible? Because 500 years ago there is no paper.
No, so paper. Paper not 500 years ago, but 2,500 years ago. I'm not sure when paper came around. It may have been around that time.
It's around after BC. Paper was invented in China, so that's a little bit after BC.
But they didn't get it from China. I thought they got it from Egypt. Papyrus was from Egypt.
But that's another kind of, not like the modern.
Oh, right, not made from wood or, okay,
right.
Yeah. So, but we think of papyrus. Up until then, they wrote. There were 2 mediums that were written on, and the Torah, the first 5 books, actually all 24 books, were written on, and especially this one, still are written on animal skin that has been smoothed out and made into it's called parchment. It's made into a smooth, flat surface that you can write on with ink. And we still use this every week.
At that too.
Right, yeah, it had to be a kosher animal. I think it's often deer for whatever reason. And but in any case, yeah, it's written. Every week in our synagogues, we use a scroll that's made out of animal skin with these 5 books written on it, and we read it in public. And we over the course of the year we complete it, and then we start anew the following year. It's written in Hebrew. You knew that? No? Okay. It's not written with vowels or with punctuation. So you can see this word. I'm trying to write in block letters in case not that it probably matters. So that word, depending on how you vowelize it, can be either chelev, which is a fat that's on an animal's kidneys, I think, or chalav, which is milk. So we have to know how. You have to know how it's pronounced and everything, and you learn from a separate book that somebody has written in what it's supposed to sound like, and then you go and when you go to read it in public, you read it from a scroll that doesn't have any vowels, has no punctuation.
So Hebrew, the language, is also for pronunciations, not for the English term. There are generally 2 categories of language. For example, the English, European language are for pronunciations. When you read it, the characters are for the pronouns.
Yeah.
Another that like the ancient Egypt language and Chinese language is for meanings. Each character has, when you say it, you know what's the meaning for it, but you don't know how to pronounce it. You have to learn.
So actually we're kind of closer to English. This sounds like a ch, this sounds like a l, and this sounds like a v.
Okay.
But there's chalev, chalav, cholov, cholev, you don't know until you know what the word means. In modern Hebrew today, most of the time they write without vowels like that. Mm-hmm. And based on context, you pick it up. Every once in a while, they will slip in a vowel if it's important, because it could be one of 2 words, and depending on which word it means, it completely changes the meaning.
How much is the difference between the ancient Hebrew and the modern Hebrew?
That's a very political question.
Why?
Okay, this is going to the Zionism class, which is one of the last classes. They, the people who brought about the rebirth, because Hebrew was used only for religious studies,
Only for religion?
Yeah, only for religious studies and for reading the Torah out loud and everything.
Spoken.
It wasn't spoken as a spoken language from I guess for about 2,000 years, I think, somewhere around 2,000 years. It was not used as a spoken language even during the time of while the temple was still around, which we're going to get to later. Even while the temple was still around during the Roman period, they had switched over largely to Aramaic, which is a related language, but it was not Hebrew. In the 1800s, when Jews started coming back to the land of Israel, there were a few people who pushed to have Hebrew be the spoken language, and because of that, there were not words for several things. Now, it was used to write books, books of philosophy, books on Hebrew, Jewish law and stuff, books on Judaism, but it was not used as a spoken language. So what they would do, there's one particular guy, Eliezer ben Yehuda. Eliezer ben Yehuda. I forget what his original name was. He gave himself a Hebrew name, which is Eliezer ben Yehuda. Wrote a dictionary and filled out all the words that didn't exist yet. He tried to go back to the ancient sources, find a word that was related somehow and make it into a proper Hebrew word. And he created a dictionary. And my wife and I just went to Israel this summer. We're getting way off topic. My wife and I went to Israel this summer, and there was a school. It was the first school in Israel to teach Hebrew, teach only in Hebrew, and they forced all the kids to speak Hebrew all the time. And they said that at this school, they would have to write to him because a word would come up and they didn't know what would be the Hebrew word for that, and they would write off to him, and then he would send it back, and then they would just start using it. And that's how they established it. Since that time, in the way people speak today, it steals a lot from English. One of the interesting ones is fries. French fries are called cheaps. Right, from the British, because they were under the British, they had cheap fish and chips, so they call them cheaps. How do you say them? They then add another plural on top of that. Cheapseem it's like chipses to create a plural. Okay.
Yeah, the reason why I'm asking that question is because from the subject of language, those two types of language has their advantage and disadvantage.
Yes.
For the meaning perspective, if the character represents meaning, the benefit is different from time to time, human pronunciation keep changing. For example, William Shakespeare, his books was written maybe 500 years ago. Now modern English people cannot read it because they are written in ancient English, which has very different pronunciations. But for Chinese written character, it's for meanings. So even now, I can read the 4,000 or 5,000 years ago Chinese documents. But the drawback.
Right. Okay. So first of all, it's not based on meaning. It's an alphabetic.
Okay.
And actually, the term alphabet comes from Hebrew.
Okay.
The first character is aleph, and the second character is bet. Aleph, bet in Greek became alpha and beta, and then and off topic.
That's interesting.
Alpha, beta, gamma, delta. Right. This is that's pretty characteristic. So in Hebrew, it's aleph, bet, gimel, dalet. And in Arabic, you also have the forms are the aleph, the be, the ba form is encompasses 4 letters. This is way off topic.
What's the relationship between Hebrew civilization with Egypt and Greece civilization?
So the Jewish civilization predated Greek by quite a bit. I don't know, before the Greeks under Alexander conquered the Jews, and that was let's see, I want to say that was about 20 About 3,000 years ago? No. No, it's less than that. About 2,500 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
No, it's more than that. I don't know. It predated Greece. The ancient Egyptians enslaved us. That's part of the Bible. Is us. They were enslaved in Egypt, and then we were let out en masse, and the Egyptians were crushed at that time. From what I understand, from what I've heard, is that I think it somehow may have been just after the Hyksos or something like that. So we coincided with ancient Egypt, and we were much earlier than Greece and certainly the other kingdoms. Okay. All right, one more.
Is there any other similar religion at the same history period?
All the other two main religions.
That's younger.
I was going to say are derived from us.
Right, but at the same period.
At the same period.
Right, before 400 BC.
Hinduism, I think somehow. I don't really know. I can't say. I don't really know. I don't want to talk on topics that I don't know anything about. Let's just stick to the ones I'm just not very good at. Man, where do we diverge? So, okay. So everything is in God's hands. So God gets blamed for good as well as bad. We have one God. If something bad happens to you, then God, at the very least, allowed it to happen, and I would say stronger than that, caused it to happen. If something good happens to you, He also caused it. I'm going to say use the term Gemara, and then we'll discuss later what a Gemara is. There's a Gemara that says that in the future we will make blessings on the good, the same good blessing on good as we do on bad. We actually have a blessing of God for bad and for good. When someone passes away, we say Baruch Dayan Ha'emet. Blessed is the true judge. And if something good happens, you say Baruch HaTov V'Metiv. If your father dies and leaves you $1 million, you make both blessings at the same time. Not at the same time. Like you make one and then the second one. I don't remember which one comes first, but you make both blessings in the same episode. On the same episode. Right. So, I'm going to try something new I have never tried before. There's a book called If You Were God by R.E.A. Kaplan. He's a very good English writer in English about Judaism. He was an American. He died in the 60s, I think. So he wrote a book, If You Were God. So the idea is you're the creator of the universe, but you have to give, how can I say this? Let's start back a step. Why did God create the universe? Right? One of the things that comes out of the fact that there is one God, and before him, nothing existed. He always existed. He's eternal. He always existed, always will exist. In fact, the concept of time he created. So like you can't even talk about what was before God because that doesn't even make any sense. So why would he create the universe? He did. One of the corollaries from having one God, he has no needs, because if he existed, like, let's say eternally, even though that concept doesn't make any sense, if he existed eternally, then if he would have needed something, he couldn't have existed eternally. He doesn't need it. So why would he create the universe? So I'm opening it up to the floor.
I mean, I think he created it to have fellowship with man. Not that he needs to, but...
Okay, why would he want that?
You know,
he doesn't need it.
I know he doesn't need it.
Okay, he doesn't need it.
And I can't tell you why he wanted it, but...
Okay.
Yeah, I believe he wanted to create something that he could have fellowship with. Okay,
we're going to say that it has something to do with man, right? Because we're that egotistical, at the least. Plus, our sources say that was, man is definitely the purpose. No other creature sits around and thinks about God, so like whatever he would be doing for them, it isn't really, helping. So why would God create, let's say man, but the whole universe in order to have man?
One idea is that maybe I don't want to say, but maybe he's a benevolent God and he creates man to bless, to share his goodness with. Not that he obviously doesn't have, that would imply that he doesn't have a need. He's just sharing. He's giving of what he already has.
That's good. That's exactly where I was going. Yes, he creates the universe to give good. Right. This comes out of the Ramchal. There's a book you can look up. They have some of it online. Derech. Way of God. Can I go back to a tangent? I meant to say this to you earlier about the languages. The point was, because Hebrew was an ancient language that did morph some over time, but it was only in religious context. When they recreated it, they took all of the words from that to apply to modern day. So all of the roots, all of the bases of the language, it hasn't diverged as much as English has from, say, if you took King James English, which is the first English, it's not the first English translation, but it's the biggest English translation that was written in the 1600s, the language has diverged a lot from there. But because they basically went back and took an ancient language and created a modern language out of it, it hasn't diverged as much. But there's a lot of politics that go into whether it's how related it is. So we'll get to that in the Zionism class, maybe. I'm sorry, I just wanted to get that out of the way. Okay, so we have that God created the universe to bestow good, which is not a need. I can bestow good on somebody, even though I don't have a need to, but simply because I want to. It's not costing me anything, so I'm going to give you something. I'm going to do something good for you. So he wants to do good for you. So what is the biggest good that he could do for you?
Give you life.
Okay, then couldn't he give... Now, if he gave you life and you said, that's the biggest good you could do for me, right? How long is enough life? If you got 60 years, would you say, well, I could have used 70, right? So then 70 is a bigger good than 60, right? And you could also say the other way, say I want life, but I want a really short one. Well, then he could have made it shorter. He could have, So it can't. I apologize, but that can't be because we've just shown that you could do better. So what's the greatest good? Because if God is the only thing in existence, right? And he's the greatest thing in existence then, by definition. So then he wants to give the greatest good. He doesn't. Why would he want to give you? If he wants to do something, if you want to do something for somebody, you want to give them the best until it starts to cost you, right? But it doesn't cost him.
So he wants to give you himself.
So he wants to give you the best thing. Okay. All right. Very good. You're going to be my star pupil. He wants to give you himself, right? And we'll put that in the same way that Susan's framed it. He wants to have a relationship with you. Okay. Now, couldn't he just give you that relationship? Couldn't he make you feel, loved and feel love for him? Just make you do it.
He could, but that would not be as gratifying as if the...
To whom?
To God.
It wouldn't be as gratifying to God.
I mean, it seems like it would not be...
He's not trying to gratify himself. He's trying to gratify you.
I know, but it seems that if someone chooses that voluntarily to have a relationship with God, you know, by giving man choice. And when man chooses to have a relationship with God, that becomes more gratifying to him.
To God.
To God.
But he's not trying to gratify himself.
I'm not saying he is, but it's, you know.
So then we got to come up with a different answer.
Okay.
Because what you said may be correct, but your reasoning is you know, it's not based on what was good for him, right? So why wouldn't he just simply force it upon you, basically make a robot that basically loves him back, whatever. He doesn't have any need, so he doesn't have any need to have the love back, but who feels loved and who will love him, you know, basically love him back in return. Like, just create that relationship without your input.
Well, how about that doesn't do the man any good then, if he's already pre-programmed to act a certain way?
Okay, why does it not do the man any good? If you're pre-programmed to act a certain way, why doesn't it do you any good? In some things it would. If you're pre-programmed to be an amazing basketball player, right? That would help, right? I could go be in the NBA. I might make some money, you know. I'm not pre-programmed with that. Quite the contrary. So why would it be better? So you're saying it's better for man somehow?
Yes.
What is better for man about that? Feel free to chime in.
Oh.
And let me know if I'm going too fast.
There will be a long way for me to go. Try to catch up.
Oh, I'm sorry. So far we have that you understand the basic concept that there's a God, right? And we already said that he wants. Why did he create the universe? To give good, because he doesn't need anything himself, right? Now that he's giving good, he wants to give the greatest good, which is a relationship with himself. He wants to give of himself to the person, right? So why not just create? We got all that. Are you good with that?
Yeah.
All right. So why not just create that where you don't have a choice in the matter?
Maybe freedom is also important.
Okay, but why? What is important about that? Because it doesn't. To God, it's not helping God any. Right? So something about freedom is helping you. But what? You guys are like so close. There's just one more logical leap you gotta make, and you're there. And you should be able to be the one. But I don't know. You said you didn't grow up like in Christian, like you went to church, but that was like kind of it. So it was, but someone from the outside maybe can make that last logical leap. There's one piece missing, and it kind of would be. I think it would be difficult if to Christianity if you sat down and thought about it. What piece is it? What makes freedom? What makes what makes it more beneficial that he didn't just create it? You, boom, you got it. Like, no input from you.
Okay, so if you want to be in a relationship with someone, what's the point of the relationship? To get to know each other. So if he gives you free will, arguably, maybe he's giving you the opportunity to be like him.
Give you a chance to practice.
That is a part of it. That actually wasn't what I was going for, but that's very good. To be like him, that is, I'm going to write that down. Be like him. That's not quite what I was going for. That kind of is how you establish a relationship, right? You become like, you start to have things in common. You have to have something in common. And the more you build that's in common, then, and the more you be like him, then that's how he gives himself to you, right? Because he made you with the ability to become more like him. But why not just give it to you? That's not what I was going for anything.
Makes you weak.
You don't ever achieve anything yourself.
Right, but why is that bad?
How do you know something is true?
Huh? No. Okay.
We're stuck.
Is that you have a better feeling about something, I could give you $1 million, right? And you would feel great about that. But you would feel even better after the fact if you had earned $1 million. There's an extra dimension of enjoyment that you get from having earned something that you don't get if it was just handed to you. Now, beforehand, you'll say, okay, you know what, I'd rather just hand it to me. Like, I don't want to go through all the work. But after the fact, you say, I am really glad I accomplished that. Someone who is, does anybody watch MasterChef? It's a cooking show, and it's a competition, and they get eliminated each week. And in the finals is a blind girl and a guy who's not blind. And everybody is so much more impressed with the blind girl, right? And you could say, well, look, if she had sight, then, she'd be just as good. So but the fact that she has to work so much harder, but she's earned it. She's done more than the people who are sighted. When you do more to earn something, then you feel more attached to it. If you are spending daddy's money, you don't feel attached to it. When you earn that money, then every penny can, not that you necessarily become stingy, but every penny means something because, look, I remember I had to do this to get that to get that penny. Going back to the story of Yaakov, right? Yaakov is going to meet his evil brother Esau, right? And he's afraid he's going to kill him. And he splits up this camp, and in the process, he forgets some small little bottles across the river. So he goes back to get the bottles, and there he wrestles with an angel, right? Why did he go back for small bottles? Because he was so honest that every penny he ever had, he earned. And for him, it wasn't like that was important to go back for even a small bit, but because he was attached to it, right? So that's the point, is that if he gave it to you, you wouldn't feel attached to it. You wouldn't feel like you earned it. You would have a lesser amount of enjoyment. So you have to earn it. Now, let's go back a step. God wants you to have a relationship with him. He wants you to earn it, right? Would he be trying to help or hinder you? Does he want you to succeed or he wants you to fail?
He wants you to succeed.
Does everybody agree with that? Does anybody want to argue on that before we go on?
He wants you to succeed, but he doesn't make it too easy. Make it too easy.
Good point, good point. He doesn't want to make it too easy. Why doesn't he want to make it too easy?
Because he wants you to appreciate it.
Because you're getting more. If you had to, we said if he gave it to you completely, you wouldn't appreciate it. If he half gives it to you, you appreciate it more than if he completely gave it to you, but you don't appreciate it as much as if you fully earned it. So he wants he wants to put enough stuff in front of you that you earn it, and that the more you work for it, the more you'll be connected to it. So, but the point is, I should write this all in cap, wants you to succeed. Right? Therefore, he's going to give you things that you can overcome. Correct? Whatever the challenge is that he's putting in front of you for you to be able to earn it, it must be something that you can do. Whatever it is he's expecting from you, it must be something that you can actually do. Does that not follow? Does anybody want to argue? Go ahead. Any questions so far? Any disagreements? I want to, because everything in this class is going to be based on this line. Almost everything. Nothing? We're good? Everybody agree with this? So,
I have to.
huh?
I need to run.
Oh, at 8:30? Are you going to be coming to the other classes?
I won't be able to make it on every other Thursday. I have a Georgia Tech Ambassadors meeting.
Okay. At what time?
It's from 7 to about 8:30, so I might be able to come late.
Okay. Maybe you can duck out earlier from there.
Or
all right. But did you agree with this first before you leave?
He wants you to succeed in a relationship with him.
Huh? He wants you to succeed. Whatever he's going to put in front of you, it's got to be something you can do. Mm-hmm. Right? Agreed. Anyone disagree? Okay. All right. This man is,
Okay.
he's just messing. Okay. So, oh, that book, you can find parts of it on the internet, on like Google Books. They had parts of it, like, you know, or you can go buy them. All right, he wants you to succeed. That's the biggest statement right there. I would definitely make an argument that this is not true of Christianity. He's giving you a task that you cannot succeed at.
Oh,
but we're going to get to Christianity much later.
What? That's so wrong.
Don't even worry about it. Go ask the Christians what they think and then go back and watch the videos.
Now, how can you talk about Christianity? I know you've studied it, but you know, I mean, I'm listening to you on the Judaism stuff, and you can't say that about Christianity.
I just did.
I know you did, but
okay. So this is not going to work. This whole "if you were God" thing. I'm going to tell you the end of it. Actually, we'll do that later. So so sin, right? So basically, what you have to do, the stuff that he's got to give you some tasks to accomplish, some things that you need to do, right? Because he said what he said. He's not giving you a relationship just outright. You have to somehow earn it. So you have to do some things in order, like Bill said, to become more like him. That's kind of the goal of the entire law, all of the Jewish law, is to become more God-like in your actions. The Gemara expresses just as he is merciful, you be merciful. Forget the other one is that specifically says.
Why is God is he, not her, but she?
Mainly, okay.
it's going to depend on who you ask. But in Orthodox Judaism, he.
No, it's a good question. The answer is just as sexist as if I just came out and said, well, of course God is he. However, there's a couple of things. One is that God obviously does not have a sex, because a sex implies there's a one of the opposite, right? If there's a male, then that implies there's a female. If there's no female, we don't call it a male. So God so in what we call Kabbalah, in the thinking of how is the universe run. So the strength of a male is that a male puts something out there and then he's done, right? He starts something and then that's it. He comes up with the idea and it just goes out there. The woman nurtures that idea and brings it to its full fruition. Those attributes, right, do not apply to every single person on the face of the earth and whatever, but those attributes are known as male attributes and female attributes in Jewish thinking. We do sometimes refer to God in certain contexts in a way that would imply female, but for the most part we don't. And part of the reason we don't is simply because it's considered more honorific to call God a he. He wrote the Torah that way, and he gets to choose. He was the one who, the first 5 books that we talked about, were dictated by God. Right? It wasn't just a compilation of what had happened. It was that God said, write down these words, and Moses wrote them down. So he got to pick. So he chose to be called male. But on top of that, the idea of creating something and then letting it go by itself, letting it go off and come to fruition somewhere else, is the way that we tend to relate to God. God created us, put us here, and then we develop somewhat, let's say, outside of God. He isn't, He's trying to stay aloof from us, stay separated from us, so that we can have this free will, so we can have the ability to do or not do, and to earn our keep, like we said. So that's why we call him God. First of all, because it's more honorific, and secondly, because God relates us to us in a way that is more of a male attribute than a female attribute. Okay.
You're asking some really tough questions, isn't he?
But he did a very good answer.
But you can ask them as just you don't have all the baggage that comes along with the question. The whole, never mind. All right. Okay, so where do we see this? We see this very early on, the idea that you're going to have these challenges. You are supposed to overcome them, and you can overcome them, and not necessarily explicitly, as we said, but that leads you to become more godlike and therefore become in closer relationship with Him and earn your reward, your relationship, that's your reward, through your actions, specifically through your actions. So in Genesis, this is the first of the 5 books. In Hebrew, it is called Bereshit. I'll put them all up here since I'm doing it now. Yeah. Shemot, Vayikra, Bamidbar, yeah, Devarim. The way we get these names is from one of the first words in the book. Usually, often the first word. This book starts Bereshit bara Elokim. Bereshit is in the beginning. Shemot is the names, and instead that book starts Ele Shemot. This is when Yaakov comes down with his family and he gives the names at the beginning of the book. In this, in English, these are called Genesis. Exodus. Exodus means to go out. These are actually Greek. Just as the beginning of something. Exodus, to go out. Leviticus. You don't have to write this down if you don't want to. I don't care if you know the English names or not. Numbers. And Deuteronomy. Leviticus this book has largely to do with the tribe of Levi, and specifically the Kohanim, the priests. There were a series of sacrifices and everything, and this book largely has to do with the laws involving them. So it's called Leviticus in English. Exodus is, we were enslaved by the Egyptians at the end of this book. And then at the beginning of this book, in the middle of this book, God takes us out and creates plagues on the 10 plagues on all of the Egyptians. You should look that up. 10 plagues.
Your homework assignment.
Yeah, you have homework. The 10 plagues. Plagues are basically horrible things, like the Black Plague in Europe. Killed off millions of people. Numbers, because it starts with the census, counting the people. Deuteronomy means the second law. Moshe, at the end of his life, gives a book-long speech, basically, It's largely his speech, telling them, this is what you did. It's been 40 years since they left Egypt, and they're about to go into the land of Israel. And he says, this is what you did then. Don't do that. You know, you should not have done this. You should do this. When you get there, when you get into the land of Israel, you should do this. So he repeats a lot of the laws, and he adds a lot of details when he repeats them. And that's why it's called the second law, because he's repeating it. Now, how did we get there? Bereshit, at the beginning, in Bereshit, in chapter 4. So, there's the first man is called Adam, right? Adam.
That's in Christian.
Yes.
So Christianity is based on Judaism. So,
okay.
Right. So we
In
we were
Islam
here
too,
first
isn't it?
by about, I think, 1,300 years, somewhere around there. Judaism started about 1,300 years before Christianity.
You mean 1300 year BC?
Yeah, somewhere around there. A lot of the
A lot further back.
depends on how you count.
Mhm.
It actually depends on how you count. Depending on how you count, you could actually, well, no, it would be about 1,300 years,
But
a little less than that, from the giving of the Torah to the Christianity.
How
No,
old
but
is-
I'm talking about like, well, I mean, from the beginning of creation is,
Right.
Almost 6,000
yes.
years.
but how old is Jewish calendar?
The what?
Jewish calendar.
So,
Yes.
so
how old is
Yeah.
Jewish
The
calendar?
Jewish.
right. I'm getting to that.
Uh-huh.
Right. One sec here. Okay, everybody got this? If you want it, you
Mhm.
can look it up. If you don't, yeah, Google. Wonderful. What we did before Google, I don't remember.
We went
Okay.
to the library, remember?
Let me go. Yeah. Let me go. My mother-in-law still does. She'll call. So, you're at a very auspicious time. The Jewish holidays start in 2 weeks, a little less than 2 weeks, and our big holiday season is right now in September, October. I mentioned at the beginning of the class that I put the class on Thursdays because the holidays fall on like Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, like through 4 different weeks, so it'd be really hard to do any other day. So, the year is about to turn over, right? The new year is in a little less than 2 weeks, and when the new year turns over, it will be 5773. Happy New Year! Now, got an interesting question for you. Man, this isn't going to work with you. What year was Adam created? On this calendar, not in
Sure.
not in our regular calendar.
Right.
Is this a
Well,
This is 5,773 years from creation of the world.
What's the definition for a year?
A year. We have a lunar calendar with solar corrections. So every couple of years we add a month for a leap year. So every 19 years it comes out equal with the solar calendar. We have a holiday the Torah tells us we have a holiday called Passover in the spring, and it has to fall in the spring. So I don't know if you're familiar with the Muslims. The Muslims, they have a lunar calendar only. So every 28 days, or 28 or 29 days, no, it would be 29 or 30 days. Every 29 or 30 days, it's a new month. So their calendar slowly migrates around the year. So they have their big holiday, Ramadan, their big month. 1 year Ramadan will be in the winter. 10 years later it'll be in the summer, and then around the calendar. Our holidays don't work like that, so we add an extra month every couple of years to make them come out even.
So Jewish calendar is very similar with Chinese calendar. Chinese calendar.
You have leap year?
Leap months.
Leap month, okay.
Additional months in some years to make it the lunar
Right.
calendar match with the solar.
Right, yeah, then it is. Yep. So this is from the creation of the world, right? It's been 5,773 years since the creation of the world. So when would Adam have been created?
Well, he would have been created, what day was he created on?
He was created on the New Year.
On the 1st of Tishrei, yes.
Right. It's created on the 1st of Tishrei. 1st of Tishrei is the New Year. There's actually a weird thing about how we count years. There's a different system if you're for kings than for the world itself. Nowadays we mostly use this. So actually Tishrei is the 7th month, but it's the New Year. It's weird, don't? When you see months labeled in the Torah, when it says it was in the 1st month, it was the 2nd month, it means counting from Nisan, which is in the spring. Nisan is the month that Passover falls in. That's the month that we got out of Egypt. So that's the 1st month for us. The rest of the world we count as going on the Tishrei cycle. So Adam was created on the 1st of Tishrei, which is the New Year. Right? So he was created in the year 2. Right? Because no calendar starts at 0. They're not engineers. So the year 1 was the creation of everything but man, right, of world. And then the year 2, on the 1st of the year, man. Okay, that's not really important.
How? I'm not sure because I have a different traditions.
Yeah.
How to?
And there was nothing before that.
Right, but from the scientific study, there are a lot of findings.
Right. So, so what we say is this is actually the year that's important to us. Everything behind here is just speculation about what happened. There are Jewish sources that say that the world is millions or maybe billions of years old. I don't forget what number you can give it. But there are sources that say that it goes back that far. But from the creation of man as we know him, right? Specifically to have a soul and everything, which is a spiritual component and a physical component, that started here.
So before.
So this year 1 which is actually 6 days, could have stretched for millions of years and whatever. We don't know what happened during that time, and there could have been humanoids, hominids, but we don't know what happened then.
How about some some civilization reminders before that date?
Right. So there could have. So it's easy to. So what I can say is that there's what we talk about as man is the creation of a physical being and with a spiritual component. So we can always say that was created here, and whatever existed before that may have been humanoid, but it was not what we consider human.
Okay.
So there are cave paintings in France that are 10,000 years old or whatever. First of all, I don't really understand. It's a lack of knowledge on my part. I don't really know much about how they date things and everything, and how they know is it 10,000, 13,000, whatever. I don't know. It could very well be 10,000. I don't have a problem with that. We don't really have a problem with what happened before that. We just don't have anything to say about it. There are Jewish sources that say that the world is like that there were millions of years before this, that there were other worlds that were created before this and destroyed, meaning like civilizations and stuff. We just don't know. As far as I know, like Chinese civilization, any sort of writing doesn't go back that far.
Right. It's very
Anything
similar.
that's recorded doesn't go back that far.
It's like a coincidence because Chinese claim 5,000 years history, and it's very similar with the Jewish calendar.
Mm-hmm.
And some scholars even claim Chinese civilization is immigrant from Jewish, from Middle East.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Some people even claim that, and it is true. The early dynasty, early Chinese civilization activities, you can see is shifting from Western China to Eastern China. So it's something like could be some immigrant from the Middle East,
Sure.
Central Asia, or even farther.
There was certainly a lot of trade and everything that went on. I don't know exactly how far back, but pretty far back. Okay, so we have man created in the year 2. So at the turn of the new year, it'll be 5,771 years from the creation of man.
But how old is
the first man is called Adam, in Hebrew. Adam is actually the term we also use in Hebrew for mankind. And his wife was called Chava. In English, she's known as Eve. God originally creates man by himself, makes one being called man, then splits it into 2, and then you have a man and a woman, male and female. Right, exactly, with the rib. So they live in a place called the Garden of Eden. You've heard of this? Garden of Eden? Gan Eden. Gan is just a garden. Eden. This place was a paradise that got locked up, and it existed on earth, but nobody will ever find it. We're kind of like guaranteed of that. They had sexual relations in the Garden of Eden, but they were created on Friday, and they were by Friday night they had sinned, and then after Shabbat, our Shabbat goes from Friday night to our Sabbath goes from Friday night through Saturday night. So after that, which we consider like holy to the whole, like it's built into creation. So after that, they're kicked out of the Garden of Eden. They ate from the tree of the knowledge of good and bad, which means actually that because they obviously committed a sin, so it wasn't just a knowledge of how to do bad, right? Okay, you're familiar with the story at all? You look like you were. So
a little bit.
I don't want to.
Apple.
The apple.
It wasn't an apple. Everybody agrees it wasn't an apple.
Oh.
It's a grape.
That's the one thing. There's a theory that's a grape. There's a theory that it's a citron. There's a theory that it was wheat. Those are the ones I remember.
What is the Hebrew word there when it talks about that?
It just says fruit.
It just says
Oh.
fruit.
Yeah.
So that's what the Hebrew
It says don't
word
eat the
says.
fruit of the knowledge. You ate the fruit.
Okay, gotcha.
So the whole story of the Garden of Eden could very well be what's the term? Not real, but it's a story to prove a point.
I know what
it didn't necessarily have to really happen that way, but the story, God tells us the story that way to bring out whatever points He wants us to know about it. So, not an analogy, not a metaphor.
It's something that starts with an A though, and I'm blanking on it.
So what happens is there's a snake.
An allegory.
The snake allegory. Allegory. Allegory is a story that didn't have to happen that way, but it's quote unquote true, like because it brings up all the point. So there's a snake that can talk. The snake, God tells Adam and Chava, if you make it through the Sabbath, the Shabbat, which we're going to get to later what exactly that is, but it's the 7th day. It says in the Bible that it was evening and it was morning in one day, meaning days start in the evening and they go to the morning, right? So we just ended, from a Jewish perspective, we just ended Thursday and we're starting into Friday now. So the 7th day, which we call Saturday in English, is the Sabbath, and it starts Friday night and it goes until after dark on Saturday. God tells them, if you can get through the Sabbath without eating from the tree of knowledge of good and bad, then you're going to live forever, and everything, you'll stay here in the Garden of Eden. The snake talks Chava into eating from the tree. The snake also had like legs and stuff. So the Chava eats from the tree. She gives it to Adam. And one story I've heard, that we have these midrashim that are kind of additional stories filling gaps, is that she said, once she realized she was in trouble, that she shouldn't have eaten it, she said, look, I don't want you to go and, like, if I eat and you don't, then God's going to have to create another woman, and she's going to be your wife, and I don't want that. So he ate from it. So what is this tree of knowledge of good and bad? Is that the idea of bad was external. Because obviously they had an idea of, don't do this, and they had some reason to think that, oh, maybe I should do this. So whatever it was so what does it mean that they ate from the tree of the knowledge of good and bad? Is that it got mixed up inside them. It wasn't so clear what was right and wrong anymore, and they had an internal desire to do it, to do bad, to rebel against God, to break that relationship with God. And until they ate, they didn't have that. So now they're kicked out of the Garden of Eden, and their child is born. I think their children are born outside, but they had relations inside the garden. And then they have two sons, Cain and Hevel. Cain and Hevel. Hevel actually is an interesting name because it actually means like nothingness. Like it's translated vanity in some places, but it means like something that isn't worth anything. Never will come to anything. And Cain actually means to acquire. These two are brothers, and they decide to bring an offering to God. This is the first sacrifice. Cain is a farmer, so he brings. I think it was his idea. It was his idea first, and then he's going to bring fruit that he's grown. Hevel is a shepherd, so he's going to bring a sheep as an offering. Cain doesn't really bring the best stuff that he has. He figures, look, I'm going to be destroying it, so what's the point of bringing the best? So God accepts Hevel's sacrifice and does not accept Cain's. And Cain is ticked. Right? So this is what the quote from the Bible. Now this is an English translation. I actually used the NIV translation so nobody could say, oh, well, that's a Jewish translation. Like you just made that up. This is actually a Christian translation into English. But I also have the Hebrew here. Oh, that was not smart. Oh, that was really not smart. I just realized I put like God's name on one of those things. Anyway, then the Lord said to Cain, why are you angry? Why is your face downcast? If you do what is right, will you not be accepted? But if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you. Well, it says here, but you must rule over it. It literally says in Hebrew, you will rule over it. Tim shal bo. You will rule over it. So in other words, don't be upset. You didn't do what was right. You can do what is right, but if you're not careful, then you're going to go into this thing called sin. The reason I put on the board sin as at the beginning of the class was because in Christianity, I know this doesn't, you can just close your ears or whatever. In Christianity, sin is a state of being. You are born into sin, whatever that means. They have some sort of state of being that you have to be rescued from, that you're born into. In Judaism, a sin is just something you did wrong, right? A sinner is someone who does sins. It's not that he's somehow intrinsically sinful, it's just that's what he does. As soon as he stops doing it, he isn't that anymore. If you are a bus driver and you stop driving buses, you're no longer a bus driver, right? So the same thing in Judaism is that a sin is simply an act that you did that was wrong. So he's saying sin. In other words, things that are sinful, it's waiting for you. Like there's lots of opportunity, but if you want to, you can. You don't have to sin. You can go. You can do what is right.
Well, I think the only difference in Christianity and Judaism is sins are actions. You know, in the Christianity, the difference is Judaism does not believe that a human has a sin nature. Okay, like they're born whatever. No such thing. They're born perfect, and and then they do commit sins. In Christianity, we believe that you're born with a sin nature. Now, until you commit your first sin, you're not sinful. But a sin is still an action.
You're splitting a lot of hairs in English that I don't think probably exist in the original Greek. About sinful, whether you're sinful, but you have a sin nature and stuff. You're born with something called, before you've done anything, you have something called sin.
No.
You need to be saved from sin. Even if you never did anything wrong, you need to be saved from your sin. And that exists from the beginning. From a person's birth. Okay, we're gonna call it tonight.
All right.
Time of death is 9:05.
So in Christian, there is a statement that just for the sin nature.
Yeah, it's in Christianity we believe that